Good afternoon, Wrestling Inc. Happy Friday. Welcome back to the Wrestling Inc. Daily. It's me, your managing editor of WrestlingInc.com, Nick Hausman, joined here as I'm every Friday to have a little fun, to talk the wacky, wild world of professional wrestling. It's our very good friend, TK Trinidad. TK, welcome back to Wrestling Inc. Daily.
Thanks for having me. How are you doing?
I'm awesome. I was telling you before we got on the air, it's like 41 degrees here in Chicago, which is like hot for us. It's very warm. I know you relate in LA to the balminess of Chicago at the moment.
Yeah, I had no idea, but I'm happy that you're happy.
Well, it was nice. It's like I'm a little happier. The dog gets a longer walk. Willow's out there a little bit more because the weather's nice. So just good vibes here to end the week, TK. So
there it is.
We got John here in the comment section saying, "Hi, Nick and TK. Happy Friday from West Texas." Thank you, John, for sending those well wishes to us from West Texas. Love West Texas. Davis Mountains. Used to walk those as a kid or hike those as a kid. Great place, great part of the country. If you want to dive in, say hi, talk about the news we're going to talk about here today. Really just throw your voice in any way you like, as long as you're respectful. Jump to the comment section wherever you're at, YouTube, Twitch, Periscope, I think is a thing. Maybe TikTok. I don't know. I don't really know what we're doing here. But jump in like Manny. Hey, y'all. Hope you're doing great. We're doing great. Thanks, Manny. Samantha here, too. Yeah, see, now the chats are rolling in. The thumbs up, that's really good. You can do all that stuff. That's all emoji in general. Play well. I don't know.
Yes.
Okay, good. Well, on this show, we're going to talk the news here in just a second. There's no interview today. We've had a run of great interviews all week as we wrapped up the Rumble Media Row interviews on Monday. I've got a special bit of audio that we're going to roll out. It's also a video that I'll tell you about at the end of the show, so stick around for that. But today, just me and TK and y'all, and in the mailbag at the end of the show for everybody, we're just going to have a fun conversation about what you think of the WWE stars that have made their way to AEW. Who's had the most impact, right? So, all right, let's get to it. News that'll leave a bruise. And we are going to start off here with a note regarding Goldberg's schedule. The rest of the show kind of has a flow to it, but since this got attention, I felt like we should throw it out there. Besides this week's double SmackDown taping and the Elimination Chamber premium live event from Saudi Arabia, WWE does not have Goldberg advertised for any other events on the road to WrestleMania. So they could be holding him back, or this could be a sign that after the Chamber, Goldberg is not written into the plans going into WrestleMania. What do you take from any of that?
It's one of those things where, WWE, you just never know. Right. They you never, we all kind of had a feeling about Ronda showing up, but we didn't know for sure until she was there. Sure. So I think too, it might, by them not announcing Goldberg is going to be used, it kind of leaves the suspense that he might be used in something else that we didn't expect. And that's their MO. So, and if he's not used, then that's fine too, because he's not on the main roster. He's like a WWE legend. So, yeah, we'll wait and see, but it's just, I feel like WWE is now taking AEW very serious. Sure. And, they definitely want to do things that shock value, that even though we might not like it, we're still going to respond to it. There's going to be a reaction to their action. So I think they're really trying to go on that scope of things.
Sure. Yeah. The Goldberg thing is just kind of here for the attention, right? It's just for this moment, and it's fine. Kind of like Lance Archer and Hangman Page. There were certainly people that were like, man, I wish it had been more believable. I wish that I'd have thought that Lance Archer was going to win that match, if there had been more bite to it. I kind of look at this the same way, right? Like, my expectation is not that Goldberg is going to win this, but did he fill a couple weeks of TV? Did it create some attention? I don't think we're going to get the banger match we got between Page and Lance Archer with Goldberg Reigns, but kind of fills the same kind of role. And you're going to need to do that stuff to keep your champions, entertaining, especially if they're long reigns.
Yep, very true. Yeah. He's kind of a household name. We all know who he is. So, and he can still kind of go. So, use him sparingly. And, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk some women's wrestling, right? Because that's kind of what the rest of the run sheet is about here today. So very fitting that you're joining us here today, TK. So first of all, the Observer saying there was word within WWE a few weeks back that said Tyson Kidd was quitting the company, but that was chalked up to miscommunication. It was then said the Kid would be back to work soon. He's on good terms with WWE. He's reportedly taking time off to help heal his neck. While Kid is able to function well, that doesn't change the fact that his neck is still in terrible shape, can flare up. And it was also said that there's been a lot of burnout among the WWE producers in the last month or so, and that many of the producers have been overworked and exhausted, but still don't get to complain, I guess, about the workload. That's not going to fly there, right? So yeah, Tyson Kidd back in the fold. How do you feel? Or looking like he'll be back in the fold once his neck gets better, I should say, right? Not with WWE.
Yeah, with injuries, and I have 4 of them, I don't know. But they flare up. I mean, it's one of those things, and especially you're talking about the neck. Like that is a really major part of the body, and how he injured it back in 2015. It's just one of those things that if you look at former football players or even wrestlers and stuff like that, and how they walk now after they retire, they don't walk like the typical average human who hasn't been banged up.
No.
So, these injuries never really go away, especially if you've been going for so long. So you're going to have those moments. And WWE is one of those companies, which it seems like they are, where you can take the time off where you're like, okay, my body is, flaring up and I can't do that type of travel. Then, he can have his time. As far as the burnout, I mean, for the lucky ones who are not being burnt out, good for you guys. But I feel like anybody I know who works for any type of company or themselves, just based off the pandemic and just, trying to get ahead of it or trying to get behind it or trying to, I don't know, whatever it is. I feel like everybody that I know, whether they're working for themselves or for other companies, they're working a lot more, even if they are at home, than before the pandemic. So unfortunately, I think, burnout is one of those things. Hopefully there is some type of scheduling where it's just like, okay, I can't go anymore, and another producer picks up the slack, and kind of there's a rotation there. Because if you get to the point of burnout and WWE doesn't understand that, then eventually your body's you're replaceable. So hopefully, both sides, WWE and the producer, knows that, because it's like, if they're gone, then they're just going to replace them. So, hopefully there is some type of implementation of rotation.
Yeah, for sure. Mental health has been a big factor as of late. I saw Lita was talking about this in one of the many interviews she's done here in the past 48 hours. And she was talking about how mental health is, being taken more seriously across the board in all these different companies. And I definitely think there have been strides taken in that direction for sure. I don't think it quite has I don't think we've gone as far maybe as we probably should, but I don't think it carries the stigma certainly that it did in the 80s through the 2000s.
Yeah.
It's a different tone here right now. And I'm glad the Kid's getting some time away. There was in the report, there was a need to say that the fact that Natalya got pinned by Aaliyah in 3 seconds had nothing to do with how there was heat on Kid or something. I mean, Natalya and Aaliyah are getting TV time doing something interesting right now on SmackDown. I don't see a 3-second pinfall loss as a big pushback for Natalya, at least at this moment. I don't know if you see that differently.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's almost like you have that, family member or friend who does the same thing all the time, and then you're hoping that they do something different. I mean, yes, at least they're getting TV time, but I don't see kids saying, well, you're not giving my wife enough TV time and I'm going to leave. WWE, it's like we take 3 or 4 steps as far as, wrestling is, as far as women are concerned, and then we might take 2 back. That's just kind of the nature of anything when you're trying to progress and get better. So yeah, I don't see that, especially since he's a producer, so he knows what is going on.
And there were reports out there were women that didn't want to come back and do the Rumble this year because Kid wasn't going to be producing it. He's really become a beloved figure, kind of that filled that Finley role, I guess, for a lot of women. See him as somebody that's really helped them out a lot and find him to be a crucial part of the machine over there when it comes to women's wrestling.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think there's definitely an understanding, especially since his wife is Natalia and he gets the business. And,
Yeah.
even when they were doing Total Divas, you see him training people like Lana and stuff like that. So it's just kind of like, I think I think that's kind of his niche. And, if somebody actually kind of gets it, that's better than somebody kind of bulldozing and saying, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do it, my way. So yeah, I get it.
Yeah. All right. Well, big news over in the world of the AEW Women's Division. Following a great match with Jade Cargill
Yes.
on Wednesday night, AQA announced today by Tony Khan she is officially All Elite. What's your reaction to AEW picking up AQA?
Well deserved. Again, with anything else, a la, NXT, people go from the NXT to main roster, AEW picking up people, well deserved, but let's see them actually be used, because, it's just kind of like, Kira Hogan's over there or still over there, I think.
Is she?
I
Is
don't
she?
know.
Is she doing
I don't
Dark?
know.
I don't watch Dark, so I don't know.
So, but that was, what I'm saying, it's like you have people come, except for, I think a few people came over from WWE or just in general where they actually were utilized. But a lot of the women, I mean, Ruby Soho, like, it's just kind of like, this is great. This is amazing. You get all excited. And then, it's like you get all excited for Valentine's Day, you go on a date, and then your date comes in like sweats. So like, this is not what I expected. This is not what I wanted.
There's
So
this weird kind of anxiety I've noticed with like these big debuts as of late in AEW, where there's like the immediate sensation of like I'm so happy, and then this kind of immediate pause of like, but where will this person be in 3 months?
exactly.
I heard
Yes.
a lot. I heard a lot of that about Keith Lee coming out of
Mm-hmm.
Wednesday night, and I heard even more about Jay White, who seemingly was just thrown out there just to uh, facilitate a gaffe, right? Like a verbal gaffe in an interview. So very odd, strange days right
Yeah.
now for AEW land. This through like April, I guess, or when all the first 3-year round of contracts come up. It's gonna be a
Mm-hmm.
very interesting time for AEW the next 8 weeks or so.
Yeah, there. I mean, it's a catch-22. I mean, it's obviously a business, so they want to get the hype and get people talking about it and all this other stuff. But then it's just like, okay, now what?
Right.
So I don't know if they're missing. There's like a piece missing as far as behind the curtain, as far as like running that, or I don't know. Are they spending all their money on talent and they need to spend some money on people backstage? I don't know what's going on, but yeah, there's definitely like some PTSD where it's like, oh, this is awesome. All right, let's wait and see.
Yeah, there is. I mean, there's definitely things to like. There's some good slow paced storytelling, but it's only for a handful of people right now in AEW that are getting to tell kind of these longer stories with good
Yeah.
TV time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Samantha here asking if we think Mia Yim is going to show up in AEW soon with Keith being there. I don't know that it's a foregone conclusion. I'd love to have her there, but for the everything we just talked about, right? Like same
Yeah,
thing.
I
Right.
totally agree. Like I kind of feel like because I talked about this yesterday. It's like, yeah, that would be, but we don't know. I almost want to see her back on Impact, and Impact, and you can kind of do different contracts. You could show up different places, but I almost want to see her. I feel like the storylines on Impact, there's just more storylines for women. Like there are women's storylines in AEW, but there's just like one and a half ones that you can kind of like follow, and then they just throw some random matches together. So I'd rather see her at least do a run on Impact and then on AEW. I just feel like they might not get her
How'd you
on
how'd you feel about
AEW.
how'd you feel about Keith Lee's AEW debut?
Um, I mean, I think we all expected it. I think we might have talked about it last Friday.
Yeah.
I think we all expected it, but it's the same thing. It's just kind of like, okay, he definitely fits the mold, but what will they do within the next, I don't want to say the year, like you were saying, the next 3 months.
Right?
Like
Yeah.
is he gonna is he gonna have like it's one of those things where you have some wrestlers and they kind of just look like a wrestler and you're like not so sure, like as far as storyline, they have to build the character a little bit more. Keith Lee is Keith Lee. Like you don't need to do too much of imagination to create a decent storyline. So it's like it's on them to really mess it up, and it's on them to really not utilize him.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of a wait and see type thing. Like with the euphoria and the hype, I'm happy that he's getting a check. because money's always great, but it's just like, are you guys gonna use him and use him correctly to create like a legacy, a really great storyline?
Yeah. Zachary super chat. AEW needs to sign Tony Storm again. She'd be great, but there's that struggle. And let's talk a little bit more about the struggle here. We got a great segue here into this article that Hikaru Shida pinned over at Weekly Pro Wrestling. In the article, she noted that she was struggling to survive in AEW. Now that sounds really dramatic, right? But she noted that there's been this growth of the AEW Women's Division. It used to be kind of centered around the Japanese women, not so much anymore. She said that the language barrier has been an issue. The COVID travel stuff has been an issue. And she also had this note about her and Emi Sakura, how then they moved to the States full time to take on roles with AEW. They were not helped, apparently, in finding housing. And so, like, Shida said that she grew up, like, trying to, learn how to speak English for when she came to the States. So it was okay for her. But Emi was like, it was impossible for her to have conversations with people. She's trying to find an apartment, So I thought it kind of the top line, I was like, that sounds kind of dramatic. But then I read it and I was like, that sounds rough,
Yeah. I mean, again, it just depends on the contract. And yes, you would assume like, okay, somebody's coming from a different country, you sign them, you want to make sure that they're taken care of. But it really depends on who is, like, how many people are backstage. Like, they have the bookers and the producers, but is there somebody that actually is like talent relations that takes care of their sole purpose is to make sure that the talent is like okay on all levels? And it just that doesn't seem like, that's just, beyond the language barrier and them coming from a totally different country. That's just what you should be doing. Like, I ran for Oregon. I had a track scholarship. There was somebody who took care of any type of stuff that we needed. So there should be somebody, but it's also easy to overlook that type of position.
Correct. Yeah. And Daniel Price, you're making a good point about how New Japan takes care of the gaijin training at the dojo. They get housing, they get food. They also have to, like, ask permission to use the bathroom. Like, it's if you're going through the young boy system over there, you're waking up sometimes at 3:00 in the morning while it's raining and told to do 1,000 Hindu squats in the mud. So, yes, there's a roof and 3 squares. There are conditions, Daniel. So, I get the point, though, right? And especially if you're bringing somebody in, and this is a big argument about WWE too, or complaint, I should say. How many people relocate their whole lives to Orlando, and then something happens? They get, maybe like keep your apartment. We have like a, what do they call it? With the house, you live in a dormitory. Near where our training is, and you get a room and a key and bathrooms in the hall. I don't know.
Yeah, I have an acquaintance or somebody in the industry where they uprooted their life. Actually, a couple people, they uprooted their life, and within 2-3 years, not only the apartment thing, but like how you make a living. Like, I know a lot of people who have multiple streams of income and they have to cut those other streams of income to be with WWE. And, yes, you are taking the chance because we already know how WWE does, but you're like, you finally make it and you're like, okay, I can do this. And then 2 years later, you're like, nah, we're good. And now you're left with like, you're just kind of, maybe unemployment, I guess. But it's just kind of one of those things.
Yeah. And I think there's like kind of a middle ground where, like, we have Esteban here saying, doesn't the Khan family own a hotel? Let the talent stay in those rooms, right? Like, maybe come in and like have a place for people to stay while they're working to finding their own apartment, right? Like, maybe this isn't a long-term space, or maybe it is if you're under like a, developmental contract or whatever, where you're not making a ton of money. But I don't think that's a terrible, like, too far outside the box idea to kind of solve this problem we're hearing about from multi-billion-dollar companies right now,
Right. And I wonder if they do have, because I believe WWE at one point they had somebody who helped with like English, English as a second language. I wonder if AEW has that type of program as well.
See, that's the thing, is they're so in flux because they're so young and like molding, and like what is community outreach? Let's figure that out.
Right. Yeah. There's just a lot of moving parts.
Yeah. What is developmental? What does that look like? Is it Cody's Warehouse? Maybe, I guess. Pharaoh's teaching people how to bump. Like, what's going on?
Oh, man.
All right.
With that being said, too, with all of that, then they should really slow down the signing process. Like, make sure that the people that are currently signed to the company, I mean, you can't please everybody, but make sure that the people who are currently signed to the company, like if they have any qualms, they could be, I mean, hopefully there's like HR person other than Tony Khan saying, you're going to do it my way. It's just kind of like, make sure that the people are assigned that they can voice their concerns and you can make the company better before you sign, 10 other people this year.
I think that, Rampage has certainly helped having that third hour where there are people that like Hook is synonymous with Friday nights, right? Like he lives there.
Right.
He doesn't need to be on Wednesdays, right? There are
Right.
other people that have gotten, I think Hangman Page has been a nice addition over there when he's been there. Moxley's popped in. I think Punk has obviously been a big part of Rampage since his comeback. So the third hour has helped. I mean, do they just need more TV? I mean, they're cranking out hours and hours and hours of content now down at Universal Studios and with their dark tapings after Dynamite right now. I mean, I don't know. It's like do they just need more TV? Like, would that make everybody happier? I don't know.
I don't think so, because like everybody that you just named is all men.
Oh, for sure. Well,
so
they had Jade on Rampage for a while, but I was like, this don't make any sense because she's a TBS title champion. This is a TBS.
And that's the thing. It's like they I don't think they need the third hour yet until they actually have built out storylines. So they're seeing the main people in and out, and that like all works. But I think they need to really like just there's things in front of the camera and things behind the camera that they need to take care of first. I mean, if they add another hour, I feel like we're going to just see the same people that they've been pushing in that next hour versus actually, beyond like, are they going to use AQA? Are they going to use her? So Keith Lee, if they bring on me, like where can we let's kind of develop like 4 or 5 storylines, maybe give the women like 2. Let's kind of roll with that, see how that works for 2 to 3 months, and then it's like, okay, we're cool. Nobody's complaining about finding an apartment, or not complaining. Nobody's talking about finding an apartment or language barriers, and like all these little nuances, and nothing. It's never gonna be perfect. But let's kind of work on that stuff first.
All right. Well, thank you, TK, for joining me at Top Show and talk all the news today. Thank you to everybody who chimed in the comments section today. It's been a very lively comments day. We've got a little bit more to go here. We're going to dive into the mailbag now. We're going to talk a little bit more about AEW and WWE. As I sat here and I reflected on this conversation about this glut of talent that has now gone back and forth, I kind of want to, now that we've had a little chance to see the lay of the land, a bunch of big names have jumped from WWE to AEW. Who do you think has benefited AEW the most by going from WWE to AEW? I asked you, is it Punk, Danielson, or Moxley? About 350 votes here in the last hour. 58.9% to Moxley, 22.5% to Punk, 15% to Bryan Danielson, and 3.6% to everybody else. Do you agree with the poll? What do you think?
Yes, Moxley is, to me, the man. Like, he can, I don't want to say he can go and come as he pleases, but he has some solid storylines. He can, take a baby break. Like his position in the company is very much established. Bryan Danielson and CM Punk, yes, but I feel like because Moxley was there first, there's just something about that. I definitely agree with the polls wholeheartedly.
Yeah, and the Moxley jump set the tone, right? He was he was his own first wave, right?
Yes.
And I guess you could say Jericho was like him and the initial GCW roster raid they did was like the first wave. Then like Moxley kind of kicked it up to the second notch. And then like the Punk, Danielson, Adam Cole, it's all starting to kind of feel like one big third wave, if that makes sense. Right.
And the way Moxley came over, like he made it known that he wasn't happy with WWE and he left. It's kind of like he almost like a mic drop moment. And it just, I don't know. He still kind of kept who he like is character wise. Yeah, it's definitely like the first wave, but just how he did it was just so like him.
I agree, because like there was all of the like weeks, like the last couple months he was in WWE with the weird booking and EC3 him and all these rumors, and is he going to do it? Is he not? Why would you leave so much money on the table? Blah, blah, blah. He does the chips in thing, right? And then actually leaves, resurrects in like a prison. He was the first guy to do the whole exit, like well-produced exit video thing, which is like pretty common now, right? Like it's its own genre, and it set the tone, and I agree. I see people saying Danielson, Rin, Daniel here. I get the case for all three of these guys. They bring different things to the table, but I think that we both agree that Moxie was like, there is a table without Moxie kind of setting it in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I feel with Danielson, it's kind of like he's the nice guy, and even though there was some subtle jabs to WWE, it was just kind of like this is what he loves to do, and he's doing it. And then with CM Punk, if this happened when CM Punk left WWE, and within the month he like went to AEW, obviously AEW wasn't around, but that happened, then it would be on the same type of level as Moxley. But I think just because of the close jump between the two companies, that's why it's just kind of more, just kind of like a bigger thing to me. And then also too, the fact that she didn't his wife Renee didn't like leave or jump to AEW, but she eventually left WWE to do her own thing. Right. It's kind of like they're almost on a unified front, not necessarily saying WWE's trash, but they're living their best life. Whereas the Bellas had a minor return at Royal Rumble. Not to say that's crossing over, but it's just kind of like one foot still in the door. Sure. I kind of feel like Moxley's like, F you, I'm out, and I'm gonna be right here, and I'm gonna do a great job doing what I do.
Yeah, and his statement, like Punk's return, was a completely different statement because he'd already kind of said F you, about a decade ago at this point.
Right.
But what Punk brought with his return was his realism, right? Like the stuff with Kingston, the stuff we're getting with MJF right now. Sure. I feel like that is just it's WWE too, right? That's when we started seeing the Charlotte Becky shoot stuff. Like what he brought to the table was a very different thing, and what Danielson's bringing to the table right now with his, I am arguably GOAT level, put me on your Mount Rushmore's all-time greatest in-ring competitors, and he's getting a chance to prove it right now. Mm-hmm. They're all very different things that these guys have brought to
yes.
Yeah.
But
right. Yeah. All right. Well, hey, we'll end it there. What a great conversation to end the week. I didn't really know what to make of this mailbag, but I really kind of liked it. This was a lot of fun. I enjoyed looking back at the acquisitions.
Yes.
I'll be back on Monday. I'm going to be joined by Michael Weissman. On Monday, you're going to get to hear the full audio. I finally got it. Took me a couple months after it went down, I guess 2 months at this point, but I got to host the Headlock Comics panel at C2E2 with Matt Cardona and Ken Anderson. And there were a couple comic artists. Of course, Michael Kingston from Headlocked was there. So I got the full hour. It's going to be a video form. I have permission to release it on this show and over on YouTube. Very well produced. It was done by the people at C2E2. Looks great. You're going to love it. And it sounds great. So that'll be here. A lot of great behind-the-scenes talk from Cardona and Ken about their times in WWE. And then let's see. What else is on my run sheet here? All right. So that's happening. Support us on your podcast platforms. That's good. Support Wrestling Inc. Also good. And then come back tonight after SmackDown for the Wrestling Inc. podcast. It's a lot like this. It's just a night. It's different people, but also good. All right, TK, anything else that you want to put over here to wrap up the week?
I just dropped we interviewed Mickie James, so you can go to our website, www.talkpod.com, to check that out. Also, if you haven't gone over there, we're dropping a different article on a different Black female wrestler every day of the month. So definitely go and check that out. Some some you don't know. History, change makers. It's not just like the five that that are kind of floating around right now. We really do a deep dive in that. So check that out. And just go to www.talkpod.com website and www.talkpod on all social media, and you can find me on everything at TK Trinidad.
Awesome. And I'm just at Nick_Hausman. I hope everybody has a fantastic weekend. I really do. Go have the greatest weekend of your life. Go support your Warrior Wrestling this weekend. They're going to be in Cicero Stadium. Great organization. I'll talk to you on Monday. And remember, if you winked, you didn't miss it.